Why, hello and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about 5 simple ways to make 2022 your most productive year ever. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, why should 2022 be any different to any other year? Well, when it comes to how we work with technology, every year around this time, at the start of a new year, we often go, now's the time to make a decision. It might be lose weight, get fit, etc. But this year, your New Year's resolution or your concept or idea for 2022 might be, how are you going to make yourself more productive by the time we get to December 2022 than you were in December 2021? So in our time together today, what we're going to look at is 5 simple changes that you can make to how you work with everyday technology to make 2022 your most productive year yet. Now, I'm Donna Hanson. My website's the 3 W's, donnahanson.com.au. And if you're interested at the end, I'll remind you there is an opportunity for you to access a free Excel mini e-course of mine. So if you're interested in improving your productivity in 2022 with Microsoft Excel, there's an opportunity for you. So I want to take you through a little presentation that I've put together, and we're going to go through each topic individually, and I'm going to actually show you how to do each item that we're going to be looking at. As I said, this time of year is the time that we look to do things differently, to make changes. And really, if you just changed one thing or one action that you did across the course of a year, even that compounding would add so much more time to your day, your business day. So I'm particularly focused here on business productivity because my specialty is the Microsoft Office suite of products. So maybe this year you've decided you just want more time back, especially after the last couple of years where across the world people have been forced to work from home. You may be missing your colleagues, etc. And we may be a bit zoomed out or teamed out or whatever. We're looking for just these little tweaks that can make our life a bit easier. Well, even if you can improve your productivity by 5 minutes a day across the course of a week, that's 25 minutes a week. And if you multiply that across 52 weeks or 48 weeks of the year, because here in Australia we have 4 weeks annual leave, I know, how lucky are we, then it works out to be around the equivalent of 20 hours a year. So imagine what you could do with all that extra time. Maybe you could actually stop and have some lunch or take the dog for a walk at lunchtime if you're working from home, or finish on time, or maybe not have to work a bit longer at the end of the day. So let's get started and have a look at how we might make these changes and do things differently so that you can have more time back to yourself to do other things, the things you want to do or the things you have to or need to do. So the first tip I want to talk about is calendar view. Now, a number of years ago, I was blessed to be invited to Singapore to work with Microsoft staff on how to be more productive with Microsoft Outlook. And I know it sounds crazy, doesn't it? Now, I can't talk to you exactly all the whole process that they do to make themselves or help maintain their business productivity, but I can tell you one of the things to come out of that, which I've applied into my business every day, is the calendar view. And basically what this means is 99% of the students I work with as a productivity trainer with Microsoft Office, they will open their Outlook or their email in the inbox view every time they come into the office, and the first thing they do when they come into the office will be open up that email. And the downside of that is, now, I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but it used to happen to me. What happens is all the emails just start dropping in and you work your way through them. You look at them and it can actually make you quite anxious. And you end up going through all your emails only to realize, oh, gee, an hour's gone by and perhaps you're running late for a meeting or you've missed out on doing all the things that are your priority for the day. So switching your email program, in this case, we're talking today about Microsoft Outlook, switching it over to open in Calendar View means that at the front end, when you start your day, you're reminded of what your priorities are for the day rather than being sucked into what other people's priorities are. So I'm just going to stop the share for a moment and I'm going to come back and I'm going to share my Outlook screen with you. So here we go. Now, I'm just looking over to the right here because this is on my second screen. So here we are in the email account. Let's have a look at how we actually go about setting up your Outlook so that it automatically opens in Calendar View. So the first thing you need to go is File and down the bottom here to Options. And from the Options area, we're going to go to the Advanced tab. And just here, Outlook Start and Exit. What we're going to do here is we're going to click on the Browse button. And from here, you'll notice that it's automatically set up to come into your inbox. We're going to choose to have it come to the calendar and we'll click OK. So now when I open up Outlook, it's going to open up in my calendar. So the whole idea behind that is it's going to remind me of what my priorities are for the day rather than being sucked into what other people's priorities are. So I'm going to click OK. And of course, nothing happens straight away. What we need to do is we need to close down Outlook. And I will just reopen Outlook and I will do the share. And you'll see it's now opened in my calendar. So we currently have the day view sitting there. So now what this will do is when you come in, you'll have your meetings and appointments, etc., in your day, and you might have it set up as a work week. So you can see at a snapshot what's there for your week or the rest of your week on the screen. Makes it nice and easy. So that's our first tip, the calendar view. So I'm going to change the share again, and what I'm going to do is come back to our PowerPoint presentation. So that was the first tip, setting it up as calendar view, and you'll be surprised just how focused you then become as a result of being reminded of what your plans and goals and commitments are for the day rather than being drawn into, what other people want as their priorities. So calendar view, even if you only apply that one change to how you do things this year, you'll probably find that can easily turbocharge your productivity. And in fact, I'd love for you to email me and let me know how much that helps. All right, so let's go on to our second tip now. So our second tip is meeting lengths. Now, by default, the generic norm for meetings has sort of always been an hour. Now, with the onset of COVID and work from home, you might have found that sometimes the meetings were shorter, but they tended to be back to back, and you really don't always have enough time to make some notes between meetings or to actually do some work if you've got back-to-back meetings in your calendar. So one of the things that I do that's a great way to make 2022 your most productive year yet is to change your meeting lengths. So here's a couple of things that I do. The first thing I do is if I'm meeting with a new client or prospect, I might schedule a discovery call, and that discovery call is scheduled for 15 minutes. Maybe I need something a little longer, so I might schedule it for 30, but a bulk of my meetings where I'm working with clients will be 45 minutes. Now, the reason for that is 45 minutes enables you to be targeted and focused. You have a time frame. I leave the extra 15 minutes in that hour as an opportunity for me to catch up, make notes on anything we've discussed, or deal with anything that might have come in during that time. So maybe whilst I've been on that meeting, I've noticed that I've got 4 phone calls that I need to return, for example. So the default when you actually create a calendar appointment in Microsoft Outlook is set at 1 hour or 60 minutes. Let's have a look at how we can go about adjusting that. So I'm just going to do a new share, and we're going to swap over and we'll look at our calendar here. And again, excuse me for looking over here. I'm looking at my secondary screen that has the calendar on it. So let's just say tomorrow, because at the time I'm recording this, it's the 13th of January. Let's just say I wanted to make a meeting so that it runs from, say, 9:15 or 9 o'clock to 9:45. So I would just double click on the 9 o'clock time slot. And you can see here it says 9:30. So I'm just going to double click on the 30 and just overwrite that with 45. And I'm going to put in here, meeting to discuss the promotional marketing for our course. And if I was inviting other attendees, I'd click the invite button and I'd type in the details. If I was using something like Zoom or Teams, etc., you could schedule through here, and you'll notice that I've got 2 options. Depending on how you or your organisation works, there's a number of ways you could do it. You could use one of these options. Personally, I have a meeting room set up, so I would put in here via Zoom link below, and then I would pop in the link to my Zoom room with the passcode for people to get in, and I would click send. So now I have a 45-minute meeting, and potentially from there, I could actually block out the remainder of that time. Shortening your meeting lengths is a great way of just capturing back a little bit of time. The other great thing about us having lots of meetings virtually is it gets a little awkward when things get silent. Sometimes when you're doing a face-to-face meeting, you might stop and you might have a few moments while somebody writes notes, etc. But when you're on online meetings, what you tend to find is that people will go, they'll be looking around and they'll go, I think it's time to end this. So I often find with the COVID and working from home and online meetings through Teams and Zoom, the meetings have tended to be a bit shorter. So I've tended to find there's some meetings where I'll check in with somebody and I only need 15 minutes. So rather than trying to fill in the rest of that time, I say to that person, look, we've covered everything we need to cover. How about we end the meeting now? That's good for me. It's good for you. And it gives us all some time back to be able to get on with whatever it is that we need to do next. Okay, so that's tip number 2. So tip number 1 was opening in the calendar view. Tip number 2 is changing your meeting lengths. Even those 2 things can make such a huge difference to your productivity if you apply them every working day across the next 12 months. And although I am talking about 2022 here, this could be any year, any time, and even moving forward the year starting from right now, this very moment that you're watching this video. So let's have a look at our 3rd tip. So our 3rd tip is rules. Now, if you've never used rules in your email program, oh my goodness, you are missing out, and this is so exciting. And I know it's sad, isn't it? I get so excited about technology, but it can do so many things for us. So my 3rd tip is around email rules. Now, email rules enable you to tell Microsoft Outlook, your email program, what to do with certain emails that meet a particular criteria. So, for example, if you regularly get email newsletters in the same way you might get promotional catalogues delivered to your home, you can actually get those bypassing your mailbox and put into a folder automatically based upon whatever the email address is or maybe something in the subject. This is really handy because all of a sudden it's like filtering your messages through your mailbox coming in, or it's like having your own personal assistant who can help sort your emails and manage your inbox so that the stuff that is getting into your inbox is stuff that when you are looking to work on your emails, they're particularly things that you need to action or that you want to work on. So let's have a look at how we actually go about setting up rules in Outlook. Now, the version of Outlook, by the way, that I'm working in is the current version, which is 365. So what we're going to do here, I'll just come back to the mail area, and I've just got a few email messages in here. I'm going to go to File, and from here we've got an option, Manage Rules and Alerts. So we'll click on that. Here we go. I'm just going to delete this rule that's sitting here in my test account. And I'm going to create a new rule. And I'm going to say, move messages with a specific words in the subject to a folder. Now, down the bottom here, it says specific words in the subject. And you notice it's a little hyperlink. I'm going to click on the hyperlink, and the word I'm going to put in there is newsletter. And click Add. And click OK. So it's going to look for any email messages that come into my inbox with the word newsletter in the subject. And then the next question is, where do we want to move it to? So I'm going to choose specified folder here, and I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it newsletters. It's going to sit underneath my inbox, which is where most of your folders sit, and click OK. And I'll click OK again. And next. And it says, are there any other conditions that I want to set? Now, there's so many different things that you can use. So if you've not used email rules before, just try picking one thing and get that working, and then try something else. And even one or two of these things streamlining your inbox can make such a difference. So, for example, you could get email messages that come into you from, say, a customer, and perhaps you no longer look after that customer's account, and you might have told the customer a few times, but they keep forgetting. So rather than you having to remind the customer or actually forward it on to the person who's now looking after it, you can actually set up a rule so that when a message comes in from that person, it sends it straight on to somebody else. So all of these are great tools you can explore, but we're just going to keep it nice and simple for now. So we've said when it's newsletter in the subject, put it in the newsletters folder. I'll click next. And it asks me, what do I want to do with message? Sorry, I'll click next. And then it's asked me if there's any exceptions. So there are any circumstances where I wouldn't want to do that. So, for example, maybe it's from an email from forwarded on from my executive, my manager, etc. I might not want that to go into my newsletter folder if it's come from my boss, for example. So if I click next, it's asked me if I want to give the rule a name, and it's by default called it newsletter because that was the key word I put in. Now you also notice this option here, run this rule now on messages already in your inbox. Now if you have an inbox with a lot of email messages in there, this is a fantastic one because what it allows you to do is run this rule through your current inbox and take anything that meets that criteria and automatically take it and file it. So, I mean, it's like grabbing a whole pile of stuff and putting it in the shredder or putting it into a filing cabinet that maybe you just haven't got round to doing. So the key here is working out what the criteria is for the rule. Is it something that you receive that you want to file? And potentially we can also use rules on sent messages too, but more on that in a moment. So I'm just going to leave that as it is and I'm going to click Finish. Okay. And I'll come back to my mailbox. Now, just so we can demonstrate what that looks like, I'm going to go to new email and I'm just going to type in training and I'll put newsletter in the subject and I'm going to click send. It's gone to the outbox and I'll just push those emails out. And underneath my inbox there, we have a folder and you'll see newsletters sitting there. So if you just click on newsletters, there's our newsletter. So that's how we create rules. Now, if I come back to the manage rules and alerts area again, and I'll go to new rule. So you can move messages from a particular sender, specific words in the subject. You can flag messages for follow-up. You can play a sound. So there's always different things that you can do. And I chose on a message that I received and I chose to put that in a folder, but I could also apply it on messages I send. And this is great because what it means is if I'm regularly emailing a client, obviously the emails that come in from a client, when I deal with them, I put them in the client folder. But when I send email messages, everything sort of goes in sent items. So you could actually create a rule that says when I send something to ABC client, put it in the ABC folder. And the beauty of that is you can just go to the folder and locate it quickly and easily. So we'll just come out of that and I'm going to change our share back to our PowerPoint presentation. And from here, that's rules. So we've looked at opening up your email program in Calendar View to remind you of what your priorities are. And then we've looked at shortening your meeting lengths, making them 45 minutes, or being okay with letting them finish early. That's cool. And tip number 3 was using email rules to act as your virtual assistant and automate how the emails are coming into your inbox and filter out those ones that perhaps are a lower priority that you want to read or action in your own time. So on to our 4th tip. So our 4th tip is stop. Stop. So what you need to do here is you need to think about what are some of the things that you want to stop doing. So I'll just switch it to that, then you're not seeing a little placeholder sitting there. So there's we do so many different things in our working day, and often we do stuff because that's the way we've always done it, or we do a process because that's how I was shown how to do it when I first started at the organisation. But sometimes you just need to stop doing things. So it's really important at this time of the year or whenever you're watching this that you take some time and think to yourself, what are the things I'm doing that are adding no value for me? So I just have a caveat on that when I say no value. You might not think they're of value to you, but part of your role might be to support another part of the business. The work you're doing to them is valuable, but you might not think it is. But if it's part of your KPIs or your key performance indicators, then reality is it probably is something of value for you. But often we have processes that are superfluous. I don't get to use that word often enough. We do them and they're no longer necessary. So maybe when we first started doing something, they were really easy and they were comfortable and they were just part of a process. But after a period of time, they're no longer relevant. So sometimes we do things and we go, we just don't need that anymore. So, for example, in my business, we used to have a protocol around banking checks, how you go about banking checks. Well, I don't know about you, but these days, most of our payments from clients come in as Stripe payments or electronic transfers. So we don't have to deal with that anymore. So that process gets removed and we don't have to manage that anymore. So there's processes that we might be doing that now no longer serve us. So now's a good time to actually look at some of those things and work out what are some of the things that we can stop doing. What do we no longer need to do? Maybe it's some social media. I know that I used to get so caught up on social media, and now I basically only get on it to post videos and so forth for my business and to engage with my audience. So I don't sit there anymore just scrolling through, or as they used to call it, doom scrolling over the early stages of the COVID pandemic. So, I want to use my time effectively and get squeeze the most juice out of my day. So basically, I stopped doing that, and that opened up a whole lot of time for me to do other things, which might be learn how to do something new via a YouTube video, or do an online course on a topic that is going to help me be more productive at a different level. So not just with technology, maybe it's concepts, or maybe it's time to read an interesting book on digital distraction. I know Professor Cal Newport has from Georgetown University in the US has written a couple of great books, Deep Work, and the other one I think was called Minimal Distraction or something along those lines. But if you want your productivity to improve, you've got to change something. And a lot of people go straight for, I need to do this. I've got to do that. I need to do this. No, sometimes it's what you cut away from the stuff that you're doing that no longer has a purpose, that actually makes you far more productive. So on to our last tip number 5. So tip number 5 is to switch off. I know that probably sounds crazy, doesn't it? But how do you switch off in a world of 24/7 connectivity? Well, there's a number of things that you can do. In email signature, you might want to put in something along the lines of, I only check my email twice a day. Or if you want me after hours, send an email and I'll respond the next working day. It's about creating boundaries. A lot of people, you send an email, within 10 minutes, they'll respond back. That is an interesting process. So I once worked with a client who, one of her customers sent her an email. She saw the message come in because she had her Outlook open, and she responded straight away. The customer sent another question and she responded. The customer sent a third question via email and she went off to go to the bathroom, only to come back to see the red light on her phone flashing to say she had a voicemail. When she listened to the voicemail, the person on the other end was the person who'd been emailing her, who said, "Did you get my email? You didn't respond." That was like 5 minutes ago. So often we create expectations by our responsiveness. So while we want to be proactive with our customers, our colleagues, etc., we need to balance that with our own mental health and our own anxieties and stress levels and workload and self-esteem and our other obligations, because work only forms a small part of our lives. And we're just looking to balance it all. So sometimes it can be as simple as giving yourself permission to switch off. So, it might be if you manage a team, maybe you're encouraging them to switch off at 5 o'clock at night, and from 5 o'clock at night to 9 a.m. the next morning, if they receive an email, there's no expectation for them to respond until the next working day. Or perhaps you just switch off your mobile phone at night. I know a lot of people who actually have their cell phones by the bedside table or on their bedside table at night when they go to sleep. It's the last thing they look at before they go to sleep and the first thing they look at when they wake up. And you've only got to go out to a restaurant or anywhere and you'll basically see couples who are clearly together, and they'll each be looking on their own phones and not having a conversation with the person that they're there sharing that moment with. So Eckhart Tolle talks about the power of now, and I think that we've forgotten that now is all we have. And what was that saying? The past is the past, the future is the future, but the present is called the present because we need to live in it and we need to enjoy it now. So I know with a lot of executives that I work with, the switch off piece is hard, especially if perhaps they're not as skilled in other areas of technology within business. So for example, I've worked with executives in travel companies, manufacturing firms, etc., where they're employed as executives because of their expertise in the industry and not because of their Microsoft Office capabilities, not because of their ability to type 90 words a minute. So the challenge for them lies in an expectation that they think they're supposed to be good at everything. But realistically, it's their knowledge that they're employed for, and the other skills can be taught. But the challenge is nobody's got the time. Nobody wants to go to a one-day training course, sit there for 8 hours, listen to 8 topics, follow a generic click here, do this, do that, only to get to the end of the day and go, I got no idea how I'm going to apply this when I get back to the office. Plus, on top of that, when I get back to the office, I've got a whole day's worth of work that I've got to deal with. Now, I know so many people like that because I used to be a trainer for an organisation that would do that sort of training. That's how we bought training in those days. But today you can get training and learning in bite-sized pieces. You can also get it from your colleagues. You can ask your colleagues what they know and try to learn one thing every day that can make you feel a bit more productive with the everyday technology that you're using. That's how we grow. That's how we learn. And realistically, you might say to yourself, or some people might say, I don't want to learn anymore. Well, my answer to that is if you're not going to learn anything more, your life's pretty much over, because every day we're learning new things. We're learning what works. We're learning what does work. We're learning what we can do. We're learning what makes us happy, what makes us sad. This is all part of this experience we call life. So the key here is work should not be our life. Work is a part of our life. Family, friends, fun activities, looking after our health, all these sorts of things form part of being a more holistic, happy and healthy person. So it's important to switch off. So finding the switch off that works for you. If you're somebody that, checks your emails over the weekend and you're really going, I want to do this, I so want to do this, Donna, but I just don't know where to start. Start by taking the first step. And the first step is to switch off. Switch off just a little. So maybe the switch off is 2 nights a week from 5 at night or 6 at night, whenever you finish, to 9 a.m. the next morning or 10 a.m. the next morning, whenever you start. You're not going to respond to emails in that period of time. You're going to put your phone on Do Not Disturb so that you can get a good night's sleep without your phone vibrating on your bedside table to tell you that a message has come in or someone's calling. So coming back to what we're looking at, tip number 5, switch off. So let's go through our 5 tips again. Our 5 tips were, the first one was change your email program so that it opens up in calendar view rather than in your mailbox. The second one was change your meeting length. Change it from an hour to 45 minutes. And feel free to end your meetings earlier if everything you need to talk about is done. You don't have to stretch it out. We're not talking about a television show. We're not trying to fill space. We're trying to get work done. And if you can get 5 minutes back a day by fast tracking where you need to go across the course of a week, 25 minutes, across the course of a year, around 20 hours. Look at email rules. How can you leverage those email rules to make life easier for you? What things can you stop doing? Are you saying yes to things that maybe you really should be saying no to, but you don't want to offend anyone? Sometimes it's just a matter of finding a phrase that pays, a phrase such as, I'd love to do that, but I have these commitments. I could do it next week, that sort of stuff, offering alternatives. And the 5th one was to start switching off. So open, change, email, stop and start. There are 5 tips to help improve, 5 simple ways you can make 2022 your most productive year yet. Now, if you're interested in learning more and becoming more productive with Microsoft programs, I have a free 5 Microsoft Excel tips mini e-course. Or you can book some one-on-one coaching time with me or check out some of my online courses. The details are down below. I'm Donna Hanson. Thanks so much. See you next time.